Hello everyone, this is Pal Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got multiple rounds of very heavy rainfall and record heat really starting to build across the west into next week. Then we've got severe weather coming back for the upper Midwest by midweek. Plus, we have a developing hurricane, if not a major hurricane, by the middle of next week that will take an interesting track. Welcome back, everyone. How are you doing out there? This is your weekend holiday update. Hope everyone is having a fabulous Labor Day weekend. I appreciate all my followers out there and my new followers. So if you do like detailed weather breakdowns on North America and the tropics, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to the satellite picture this afternoon and take a look at the remnants of what was Tropical Storm Javier. You can actually see it out here into the Eastern Pacific. That's actually decaying and dying out, but what it's doing is it's actually spreading its moisture back into Texas and really elongating right along this boundary, this little cold front. And then just if you're on the eastern side of that, you're on the wet side and you're seeing some very heavy rain amounts. And in fact, we had some flash flood emergencies overall this morning in portions of northwest Georgia, but very heavy rain is spreading out into portions of deep south Texas this afternoon. And there's a little pocket of energy too with this cold air aloft sneaking across the Red River this afternoon back into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're seeing some stronger thunderstorms as well. So let's take you through the overall setup for this morning. And we did in fact have that flash flood emergency of this area, this pocket of energy that was training over the same area. And this all unfolded in about 6 hours time frame right here in northwest Georgia. And it dropped anywhere from 6 to 10 inches, and they were expecting another 1 to 2 inches of rain over the next hour. So that's why they did include that flash flood emergency. That just kind of shows you the amount of precipitable water in the atmosphere with these decaying remnants of hurricanes out there in the eastern Pacific. But we also have these stalled frontal boundaries, and the combination of both of those are sending some very heavy rainfall. And I think we're going to be seeing some of these more flood warnings, if not flash flood emergencies, over the coming days. So but for today, we do have that marginal risk for severe storms. Those storms that are coming across the Red River this afternoon going to be inundating the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's dropped a nice little outflow boundary out ahead of it. That will keep the storms alive as they traverse southward. They could be seeing some borderline severe storms and some pocket change hail. You might have some quarter-size hail mixed in, but also some nice much needed rain into portions of Southern California as well. Compliments of that just decaying remnants of what was Javier. So let's take a look at the hazard map, because man, it's all about the heat out west, and there's plenty of record numbers are going to be unfolding today, tomorrow. I think it really peaks out on Tuesday and Wednesday, but we've got numerous excessive heat warnings, guys, from multiple states of California, Nevada, back into Oregon, Idaho, back into Montana. All those areas are going to be inundated with numerous record high temperatures unfolding, while much of portions of Kentucky and Tennessee are dealing with those flood watches. And there you had those flood warnings where they had the flash flood emergency, and just extreme portions of Alabama as well as northwestern parts of Georgia. But here's some preliminary, heat records for yesterday. So all these areas in, say, the magenta colors, that broke daily record high temperatures for that given day. And some of these areas actually broke the all-time monthly record for September. So they're seeing some dangerous heat, and that was yesterday. You're going to be adding to those today, and I think it really starts to peak out for Tuesday and Wednesday with the hottest temperatures you've seen in many years out here across the West Coast. But man, take you back what unfolded for August. Here's the overall rain amounts, and you can see the graph on the right hand corner of the screen of where the rains have fallen across your state. Been bone dry out there. That's where they're seeing those record high temperatures out off the West Coast. But look at all that much needed rain that fell across Texas, and they're going to be adding to those totals. But really compliments of these very warm water temperatures out here in the Gulf, these stalled frontal boundaries, and these kind of remnants of the just decaying Pacific storms have really helped amplify the rains, and they're going to be adding to these rainfall totals, especially across the Ohio Valley and even actually in portions of the Northeast coming in for tomorrow. So let's take a look at this setup. So for today, again, we got the decaying remnants of hurricane, now tropical storm, if not decaying tropical storm, Javier, going to be sending very heavy rain amounts. So you have slight risk of excessive rains. Typically that implies about 2 to 4 inches. Some isolated heavier amounts are in deep South Texas, Rio Grande Valley areas, portions of the Houston Metroplex. There's those storms that are coming across Texas into East Texas and North Texas. And then the heavier amounts in that moderate risk where they had the flash flood emergency this morning, but definitely portions of northern Alabama, northern Georgia, back into Tennessee, Kentucky, even parts of the Ohio Valley. And then, yes, we're going to start adding to those totals and start giving some much needed precipitation for the Mid-Atlantic, as well as portions of the Northeast. That means Connecticut, that means New York City, that means Massachusetts. All those areas are going to be hit with some heavier rains later on this afternoon. And again, we just have the decaying remnants of Javier as it continues to, the further it moves across, and more of these storms, kind of lose its luster. They elongate. When they elongate, they shear out and they spread all the precipitation in its wake, and it's always on the right side. You got right front quadrant storms. So all the areas of instability, all the heavier rain, all the moisture in the atmosphere is really elongated right along this boundary with the combination of that stalled front. So the heavier rain amounts will again set up further south into portions of South Texas. And you can see that again on Monday. Same places that get hit today are going to get hit tomorrow. But as this boundary lifts a little bit further north, it brings the heavier rains with it, opening up the Gulf, opening up the Atlantic a little bit more. Now we're talking those slight risks for severe weather into portions of Pennsylvania, northern portions of Jersey, getting back into New York City, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. All those areas are desperately needed. They're in a severe drought, and you're going to get some much needed heavier rainfall in those regions. I think you still get heavier rain amounts as we go into your Tuesday timeframe, but maybe just not as much. But the big deal is by the time we get into Tuesday, we'll be talking about this developing system. So we highlighted this for a couple of days now on this channel. It has now become Tropical Depression TD 12E, which will become K, and it's expected to rapidly intensify. And right now, the newest update from the National Hurricane Center takes it up to 100 miles an hour, and that's just in 72 hours, guys. And this could easily become a major hurricane by the time we get into just Wednesday timeframe. So I'm expecting this to rapidly intensify. And check out the track it's going to take. It's going to continue to head west, and then it's going to get pulled west and northwest. And look, it becomes a hurricane by the time we get into Tuesday morning. And now that's crucial because it continues to increase in intensity. And I think it starts to max out in intensity, unfortunately, right when it gets dangerously close to Cabo San Lucas. And in fact, I think it's in a prime area where they're going to get all the right front quadrant winds and all the right front quadrant heavy rain amounts. And we could be looking at on the cusp of a very strong Category 2, if not a major hurricane by then, by the time we get into Thursday morning. If we take a look at the 3D imagery on the hurricane model, about 7 o'clock on Wednesday night, it's got a pretty intense hurricane knocking on the door of Cabo San Lucas right here, right in that quadrant. And they're getting all those winds from the south side wrapping around and then spreading all that heavier rains inland. So yeah, I'm expecting hurricane watches and warnings to unfold shortly for these areas down here in the Cabo San Lucas area. But it's going to take an interesting track after it does that. In fact, I go back in history and I looked at some of the similar tracks, and we take you all the way back to Hurricane Kathleen. So it's very rare that we're talking about, hey, we could be looking at a decaying storm, not only traversing across the Baja of California, but also sending impacts. Yes, I said impacts to Southern California. Probably not as a tropical storm, but at least it brings some much needed precipitation. But you see, back in 76, It topped out at about 80-mile-per-hour hurricane. I think this one's going to be much higher than that because it only went to a 986 millibar. This one easily goes in the 960s range. But it did take a somewhat similar track. And back then, wouldn't 14 inches of rain in California be nice? That would be nice, folks. So I'm not thinking anything like that. But I'm thinking we're going to be looking at some much needed precipitation by next weekend for Southern California as they deal with this rapidly intensifying hurricane topping out on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, right around the Cabo San Lucas area, continuing up the Baja of California, spreading all the heavier rains, and then eventually heading into Southern California. But man, before that, we all about the heat, guys. I mean, by the time we get into Tuesday, we're talking all these areas. These are potential record highs of 47 across the western U.S. All these areas encircled, these are major cities. That's Sacramento, California, 114 degrees. Okay, that's hot stuff, right? And that's what's unfolding across, you know, Death Valley could be at 125. The all-time record, the world record in September is 126 degrees, folks. Okay, so we're talking dangerously stuff. Many records are going to fall. Not just Tuesday, not just today, tomorrow, but really amped up on Tuesday. But going into Wednesday, we could be even looking at more as the ridge will start to expand and move further eastward. Now we're talking potential up to 53 major cities knocking on the door of record daily high temperatures. So yeah, definitely some hot stuff. But before that, man, underneath, it's all about what will be Hurricane K. Look at that eye, folks. That is an impressive storm going to be unfolding as this rapidly intensifies. It's going to be a pretty intense hurricane they're going to have to deal with. So you're going to be dealing with all the higher winds across the Baja, but going to be spreading all the additional moisture and feeding it back into Texas. Again, a decaying storm elongates and spreads out its precipitation. So that will not only spread more precipitation back into Texas, some parts of Oklahoma, but really across the deep south again, back into Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, those areas. And we've got three little vorticities. I think severe weather comes back for the upper Midwest by the time we get into middle to the end of next week. But also we have another vorticity coming across into portions of Texas again, along with the remnants of what will be Hurricane K coming up the Baja of California, getting into portions of Southern California, decaying as a tropical storm and then as a tropical low pressure center. But here's all the heavier rains of complements of those vorticities and that stalled frontal boundary right across Southern California, much across the portions of Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. All these areas here will be inundated with some heavier rainfall from that particular system by the end of next week. But yeah, look at that impressive storm right off the coast of the Cabo San Lucas. But again, as we go into next weekend, that's going to start weakening, going into cooler waters. But it's going to be held on enough to bring additional much needed precipitation back into Southern California. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.